wages have come under severe pressure because of the rise in wages has not matched the rise in inflation. And today's figures showed that real wages on average are falling, although some of us have done quite well. There was a big rise in bonuses at the end of the year, which looked like they went mostly to people in the financial sector. But across the rest of the spectrum, wages don't seem to be doing that well, whereas inflation, of course, is rising quite fast, and that and all this. It's important to remember everything that we've said today really predates the impact of the Ukraine crisis, which is going to be felt overwhelmingly in energy prices, but also perhaps in food prices.
Beautifully summarised there by Professor Portes. Tony Wilson, let's go to you. I'm always conscious when we discuss these aggregate national macro numbers, as we economists call them. It's a mixed picture across the UK. Yes, there's a record number of vacancies. Yes, unemployment is at a pre-pandemic low. On the other hand, there are parts of the country where there isn't work. There are parts of the country where the notion that there are lots of job vacancies sounds like a bad joke.
Well, that's definitely the case, Liam. There's parts of the country where we have lower vacancies and relatively higher unemployment. We'll actually have some work out on this in the next couple of weeks, which will be illustrating this point with the Local Government Association looking in particular at some of those differences by areas. And actually, many of those areas that are struggling post-crisis are the ones that were struggling before the crisis as well, particularly ex-industrial areas, some inner city areas and some coastal towns, relatively deprived coastal towns. But having said that, the growth in vacancies has been pretty broad-based. I mean, it's been across industries. And because of the nature of the pandemic, it particularly hit self-employment and private sector employment hard. It particularly hit relatively more prosperous areas harder in terms of job losses. Some of those regional effects haven't been as bad as they might have been. The one thing I would say, though, is that nonetheless there are some groups who are definitely doing a lot worse, and in particular older people. I mean, one of the standout facts in today's data is this really precipitous decline in labour force participation amongst people aged over 50. Yeah. So we've actually had a rise of more than 500,000 in the number of older people who are not in work and not looking for work since the pandemic began. There's nearly 600,000 fewer older people in the labour force. And these are people who are actually actively, who are not looking for work and not working anymore.